Alright, hello everyone, welcome to the solutions video for Selective Prep Mathematics, Test 34. Before we get into the solutions, we're just going to take a quick look at 4 different topics that I've chosen, because I thought there might be some difficulties in terms of solving them, or also in terms of time management when we solve them. So the first topic that we're going to look at is finance, and more specifically discounts. And I chose this topic because it can be quite time consuming if we take the wrong extra steps or if we do some unnecessary working out. So in this example question, there's someone called Ben who receives 40% off for a $100 pair of shoes, and we need to calculate how much he ends up paying for them. Now the first choice that most people make, and this is where the mistake kicks in, is that they try and calculate the discount first. And we can see here by calculating the discount, we already have 2 or 3 steps that we're taking up. And then after that, we need to subtract the discount from the initial amount to find out what the final price is. And there's another 2 or 3 steps there. So just by doing this, there's 3, 4, 5 steps that we don't need to take. And we can avoid this by just taking 5 to 10 seconds to mentally calculate what the percentage of the initial price, the final price, is going to be. And to put this more simply, basically it means if you receive a discount, how much less do you need to pay? So now how much left do I have to pay? How much do I need to pay now of the original price? So if I have a $100 pair of shoes, again, I receive a 40% discount. Now I only need to pay 60%. Okay, and 60% of $100 is $60. Okay, so we can speed things up a lot more by just cutting down the amount of working out we need to do. Now the next topic we're going to look at is fractions and how we can make common denominators using lowest common multiples. Now, in terms of making a common denominator, a lot of people try and find common denominators through multiplying all the denominators together for some reason. And a lot of the time, this doesn't work. It gives you the wrong answer, it gives you a really big number that you just can't work with. Now, it does work in some cases, which we'll look at a little later, but most of the cases just don't work, and I advise against it. And we can see this in the example here. And we can see that what we should be doing is simplifying first and then looking for common multiples after we simplify and make that number smaller. So we have 4/12 plus 8/16 over 1 over 24. Okay, when you simplify it, it becomes 1/3 plus half plus 1 over 24. And through these 3 denominators, we know that the lowest common multiple is 24. Okay, once we found that, then we're going to try and make every denominator this lowest common multiple. So 1/3, we multiply top and bottom by 8 to give you 8 over 24. Half, multiply top and bottom by 12, and then 1 over 24 you leave as is. Gives you the final answer. Now, for surface area, just a quick tip to increase speed, although there's not a lot of people that make a mistake in this, they just spend a lot of time on it. So a quick tip to increase speed is to keep in mind and to know that for objects that are made of squares or rectangles or cubes, the opposite sides of that object or opposite faces or opposite views have the same surface area. And so if we look at the bottom and top, for example, let's look at the bottom first, we're going to get this nice lovely face. Okay, the bottom is going to be a 7/8 flat face. It's very easy to calculate the area of. It's just 7 times 8. If we look at the top though, not so easy because there are rows and rows of cubes, and these rows, obviously we need to add them up to find what the surface area is going to be. But if we were to look at this object from top down, it doesn't look quite as difficult because what you're going to see is actually exactly the same thing as the bottom. You're just going to see a flat face. And so in that sense, it becomes a lot more easier to calculate because now we know it's just 7 times 8 as well. So when we calculate this, you just need to calculate the bottom, which is 7 times 8, and then multiply it by 2, okay? Plus top is just multiplied by 2, okay? So you just find 1, multiply by 2 to find the other side as well, and that's how you save time. You don't need to add each block one by one. And the same goes for the sides as well. When we look at it from this view, this is the type of image we get. We just need to do 7 times 4 multiplied by 2, okay, for the other side as well, for this side as well. Now, this is a very special relationship between speed, distance, and time that a lot of schools don't really go into too much depth into and don't explain very well. A lot of you might have seen this triangle before, distance, speed, time, which is a good triangle to use, but it's difficult to memorize it if you don't actually understand what it means. So it's a lot easier to memorize and keep in mind once you've gotten a deeper understanding. And so what this triangle really is just a form of rote learning, which I don't like because what it is just memorizing for the sake of memorizing, and it only stays in memory for a short amount of time. So to understand better this triangle, we're going to look at the units for speed. We're going to look at units to understand better. So the units for speed are distance over time, which you can see here. So kilometers over hours, kilometers per hour is distance over time, meters per second, distance over time. So I'm going to write that out here. So speed equals distance over time. And so if you understand that already, that's a good start, because from there you can calculate everything else. Move time over to find the formula for distance. So it's speed times time now. And then if you want to find time, move speed over to find that time equals distance over speed. Now let's move straight on to the questions, because I'm aware we spent quite a bit of time on the explanation. So this question is to do with the angle sum of a triangle, which we should know is 180 degrees. Now, we already have 2 out of 3 angles, and including the third angle, these 3 angles should add up to 180 degrees. So x plus 130 plus 25 should equal 180. Now, 130 plus 25 is just 155, and so we know that x should be 25 degrees. Now, for question 2 is finance. We took a look at this before. So someone wants to buy boots for $110, shin pads for $40, and socks for $12. But happy days, they get a discount. Okay, so the discount is 40% for the boots, 30% for the shin pads, 20% for the socks. And so we know for the boots, they only need to pay now 60% of what they did before. For the shin pads, 70%, and for the socks, 80%. Now you can calculate these percentages into decimals or fractions if you want, or if you can do it mentally, if you can do some quick mental maths, that's good as well. So if you're looking at $110, 60% of that is going to be $66. And you can just do that by finding 1/10 and then timesing it by 6. Okay, so it's just 111 times 6 gives you 66. For $40, same method, it's $28. And for $12, once the discount's been applied, you only need to pay $9.60. Should add up to $103.60. Now for question 3, we're just comparing who has the highest proportional fraction of votes. So Jay has 7/8, Lucio has 3/4, Celine has 10/12. Now we can only simplify Celine's fraction, which is 5 out of 6, and then after that, we can find that the LCM is 24. So LCM is 24, and if we want to make all the denominators 24, for J, just multiply top and bottom by 3, should give you 21 over 24. For Lucio, multiply by 6, should give you 18 over 24. For Celine, multiply by 4, should give you 20 over 24. So we can see here that J should be our winner by just edging out Celine. So, probability. When we look at probability of this dice here, because it's a 7-sided dice that's numbered from 1 to 7, okay, rolling a 5 is a 1 in 7 chance. It's one number out of 7. So rolling a 5 is going to be 1 out of 7, and for the second roll, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be 1 out of 7 as well, because these 2 dice rolls, or rolls of the die, don't affect each other. Just because you roll a 5 once doesn't reduce your chances of rolling it again on the second go. Now, what we do when we have these 2 separate events, so one is rolling on the first, one is rolling on the second, is we need to multiply them together if they're going to happen together. So the chances of them are going to be significantly lower if they're going to happen together, whereas they might be higher if they were to happen separately. Now, if we want to throw them twice in a row, the chances are going to be 1 over 49, because top times top, bottom times bottom should give you 1 over 49. So question 5, surface area. So be careful when you read the question, because it does say the face. So there are 14 cubes in the structure. If you paint the exposed surface, so that's not the bottom. We can't see the bottom, it's not exposed. So for those of you that were a bit confused, that might be why. So let's take a look at the top first. If you look at the top, you should see something like this. Okay, not the best diagram, but you get what I'm trying to do. And although it's a little bit confusing, okay, if we want to compare it with the bottom is going to look like this. Okay, 9 squares. And if you look at it from the top, it's still 9 squares worth of area as well. Okay, we have 1 here, the surrounding area here to make it 4, and then the surrounding area here to make it 9. Okay, we see the same 9 blocks worth of area if you look at it from top down. So top equals 9 meters squared. Now the sides are a kind of pyramid shape. So we see this kind of structure going on with our sides. So we have 6 blocks in our sides, but we've got 4 of them. So we have 6 times 4 equals 24 meters squared. So 24 plus 9 equals 33. So our answer should be B. Now, question 6, we're looking at fractions. So we have 2 nice short people, and they are 4/7 and 4/11 of the average male height, respectively, which just means in that order. So how many times bigger is their combined height? So we're just trying to find what proportion of the average male height are they when they're added together. So we're trying to find the lowest common multiple here, and this is like the very few proportion of cases where we can actually multiply the denominators together to find the LCM. And that's because these two numbers are prime numbers, which lets us do that because they don't share any factors, and so there's not going to be any smaller LCMs than that. And so we're trying to make 77 out of this. So LCM equals 7 times 11, which is 77. If I try and do that with 4/7, we multiply top and bottom by 11, and top and bottom by 7 for the other fraction. So we're going to get 44/77 plus 28/77. And that should give me 72/77 as my final answer. Does that work? Yes, I should get B. Now for question 7, we're just seeing how James goes from home to school and then school to home. So his speed on his way to school is 8 kilometers per hour. His speed on the way back is 4 kilometers per hour. And the distance remains the same, 4 kilometers up and back. Now, we remember the formula from before. If not, you can pause the video, try and figure it out yourself using the units trick that I told you. Because I remember it, I've done it so many times. It should be T, time equals distance over speed. Okay, time equals distance over speed. And so on his way from home to school, that is going to be 4/8. T equals 4/8 equals half an hour equals 30 minutes. From school to home, okay, T is going to be 4 kilometers over 4 kilometers per hour. And so that's going to equal 1 hour, which equals 60 minutes. So when we add these together, we should get 90 minutes, which is C. Now, moving on to question 8. So we're just trying to calculate what percentage of this 4x4 square is shaded. So we'll try and calculate a fraction first. So it's a 4x4 square. Total squares is 16. And we can see here the shaded squares is 6. Now, we're going to simplify that first, make it 3/8. And then what we want to do is, because when we convert to a percentage, we need to multiply by 100%. So we're going to try and make the denominator 100 or as close to 100 as we can. So the closest to 100 we can kind of get without multiplying with decimals and things like that is to make 8 into 200. And we can do that by multiplying top and bottom by 25. And that should give us 75/200. Now, if we multiply that by 100%, that'll give us 75/2%. And that is just the same as 37.5%, which is B. Last 2 questions now. So Charlie buys shoes that were originally $80, but he gets 70% off. So he buys them at 30%, the original price. And what that is $24. So that's just some quick mental maths there. Divide by 10 times by 3. And then he sells them at 165% of the price that he bought them for. So how much profit does he make? So when you buy something and sell it at 100% of the price, that's breaking even. You make as much as you spent. Now, if you're selling them at more than that, you're making a profit. So he sells it at 65% more than he bought it for. So that's making a 65% profit on $24. So times to find the profit, we should do 24 times 65%. Okay, if we find 1/10 of 24, it's $2.40. Times it by 6, it's $14.40. So I'm just splitting this up a little bit if you're getting confused. So I'm doing 60% and then 5%. So 60% was $14.40. 5% is just half of $2.40, which is $1.20. Okay, that should give you $15.60, which is D. Now for our final question, it's a speed, distance, time question. So an object is rotating in a circle. Okay, radius is 7, r equals 7 meters. It's rotating in a circle around and around, and it's going at a speed of 14 meters per second. Now we would need to calculate how many revolutions or how many rotations it does in 10 seconds. So let's calculate the circumference or the distance around this circle first. Okay, so circumference is 2 pi r. So just for simplicity's sake, we're just going to estimate pi, so around 3. So it's going to be 2 times 3 times 7, which is 42 meters. Now, let's look back at our time formula. So T equals D over S. Okay, so D is 42. Our speed is 14. So it's going to take 3 seconds per revolution. Okay, per revolution. Sorry, that says revolution, by the way. This is just revel, short for revolution. So 3 seconds per revolution. If you've got 10 seconds, you can do 3 revolutions max. You can't fit in a 4th one, okay? You'll be stopped halfway when you're trying to do that 4th one. So our correct answer is E. Now, good job, guys, for keeping up with that solutions video. It was a little bit strenuous, but hopefully once we get more experience, it won't be as hard to keep up. If you had no problem keeping up, great, you are a genius. So just a couple of key points to remember and take home for the future is these 4 topics that we looked at the start. So finance, make sure you try and decrease the number of steps you take. Don't jump and make silly mistakes while you're doing skipping steps that you need, but try and get rid of unnecessary steps if you can. Be smart about it. Fractions, when you're simplifying something, when you're finding a common denominator, make sure you don't multiply everything together unless it's a prime number. And make sure you simplify, make sure you do that before you find the LCM, because otherwise your numbers are going to be huge. In terms of surface area, remember that opposite sides are the same. It helps you a lot in terms of time management. And in terms of speed, distance, time, don't rote learn. Try and understand the units instead. It helps you in the future a lot more than you might expect. Okay? And this isn't just for speed, distance, time. It applies to everything. Understanding is much more important than memorizing. Alright, good job, guys. I will see you next week in next week's video for solutions. Have a great rest of the week.